Welcome back to another episode of the Experts in Fire podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vennard, and with me today is Randy Mowry. Today's episode is Fire Trends in the Marketplace, Part 2. Let's get into it. Hey, Randy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Sorry, we're giggling. I'm trying not to look at you as I'm recording the intros and the outros because you're just giggling away over there. That's great. That's fun. That's fun. That's why we get together, because we can have fun and we can talk about things that we do here in this industry. And today we're talking about Fire Trends in the Marketplace Part 2. So in Part 1, we talked about fireplaces. And in this episode, we want to talk about fire pits. The huge trend. I mean, we've seen fire pits grow, what would you say, Randy, in the last 7-8 years? They're through the roof.
Easily. It's literally like wildfire, the calls that come in for fire pits these days.
Yeah. And it used to be very specific to the spring. And we've discovered probably in the last 5 years, it's just year round.
And, I feel that we work with so many designers, and once their clients and themselves, attending shows, if they caught wind of everybody wanting to redo something in their backyard or their property or new construction, they implement some type of fire pit, fire feature outside in almost all their designs. We love our designers, and we thank them. We thank our contractors for doing that and helping us out in pushing these fire pits, but it is definitely exploded for sure.
Yeah, it is. And it's rare that you hear two guys in the hearth industry use words like on fire or explode, because those are...
I was wondering if you were going to catch that or not. Fire pit, we got to talk about fires.
Right. You're absolutely right, though, Randy. We saw the kitchen move outside. Well, we saw the living space move outside, and then we saw the kitchen move outside. And along with that became the opportunity to say fireplaces are indoors. How do we have outdoor fireplaces? And the design, I mean, just the things that we see now in comparison to the old school, hey, here's a, kind of a metal grate, you throw wood in there and you have a fire outside. It's mind-blowing, the things that you see and the things that you can do with fire pits these days. So let's just dive right into that. What are some of the trends that we're seeing when it comes to all of those fire pits that we're selling?
I think one of the biggest one is a turnkey style fire pit, meaning that has all of the elements that a homeowner needs. A fireplace that is easy to use, easy to assemble, and easy to place. And the first one that comes to mind with what's coming across to us is our Tondo fire pit, Mike. It's a two-piece system. Easily for two people to move, whether you are a rooftop in the Detroit area, rooftop in New York. I mean, it's something that can fit into a freight elevator, two pieces. It's easily manageable. There's a top half and a bottom half. The units have adjustable feet to them. And it's just simple for folks to move because they can essentially move the top, the burner assembly, and then they can move the bottom piece. Like I said, with two people, even if they had to carry it up a couple flights of stairs, it's easy to do, easy to set in place. And then also, if somebody's using propane in those applications, there's a full line of the Tondo propane tank enclosures that look just like your fire pit. So that the combination of everything, and that's what I mean by turnkey, is you can have a complete system that's very manageable for somebody to get from the time of delivery to the time of the resting spot, whether it's their backyard, their rooftop, they got to climb a mountain to get to their backyard, through a fence, through a gate. So I would say that is one of the number one things, because a lot of the questions that drives it is that the people are looking at that is, how heavy is this?
Yeah, I was going to say size, shape, and then weight is the big player. And you have a great example there in the Tondo, coming in two pieces, being GFRC, so it's lighter concrete. And that was really what we designed it around, was the ability to get it to places that other solid pieces can't go. I think one of the trends there as well, though, has moved from GFRC to steel as well for similar reasons.
Correct. Yeah, the Corten steel is another big one that we get a lot of questions on, that a lot of people are moving to, is that Corten steel, from a design aspect.
Randy, I was in St. Louis not too long ago, and I'm looking out my window at the hotel we were at, and we were right downtown, and there's a rooftop across from me, and there's fire pits and quote unquote grass, right? It was fake grass, but they had an entire space up there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, isn't that amazing? You know, you're right in the city, and over by the arch they have a park and everything, but you can just go to the rooftop and sit down and enjoy a fire, enjoy a drink, and be right there in the city. So that opportunity for designers and, you know, people who are looking at, how do I do this, not just for, you know, my backyard. That's kind of easy. I've got, you know, a couple acres here. But for people who are finding themselves in those tight situations, the other one that I was thinking about when you were talking as well is fences. You know, some of these units are so big. How do you get it? You can't get a forklift into somebody's backyard, right?
Or you're going to trash the grass. You got to take the fence and poles out. So there's some challenges for folks there. You know, when I say Tondo, the Tondo is the round version of a fire pit. It's been huge. And the cool thing about that, we're coming out, you know, we're going to have a quadro soon, which is going to be a square, because that's another trend. We have a lot of folks that want square fire pits. So we're going to be able to meet that need, and those are going to be the same thing, Mike. They're going to be two pieces. They're going to be able to set in place, probably a couple more people to carry them just because of the overall sizing, but easily manageable versus possibly a one-piece unit of the same size and trying to get it placed. So it's a very, very, very popular question at the beginning, is what is this way? How is it going to take to get to the backyard or wherever it's going?
Yeah, that's definitely the trend. The trend was GFRC and just beautiful big units. And then what we ran into were those situations where, well, this has got to go up on a roof, and I need this on the roof. And I remember a couple times talking with you guys and hearing people talk about having to get cranes and hoisting things up with cranes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to find a solution for this. We just have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we have properties around here in Michigan that just have the deck is essentially the third story because it's a walkout, and, you know, that's 30 feet up in the air with you're not carrying a, you know, 800-pound fire pit up them steps. At least, let's put it this way, I'm not carrying a fire pit. Not anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, it's funny. My wife asked me the other day, she's like, hey, how are you going to do that? You can't do that stuff anymore. And I went, no. That's what sons and nephews friends are for, right?
Exactly.
It's the beauty of having sons in their 20s. You know, you can get a lot of work done for not a lot of cost. So don't tell them I said that.
Yeah, I was smart enough when I refinished my basement, and I was looking at this pallet that was about 4 foot tall of sheetrock in my garage, and I was like, where's Matthew and his buddies? You know what? Here's some money. You guys can carry that down and stack that up downstairs.
What, they call them flash mobs? We should call them flash jobs, right?
Flash jobs. Exactly.
We just had a multi-million-dollar idea, Randy. Flash Jobs will create the app.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yes.
That is awesome.
It'll just bing you and say, hey, somebody at this address has immediate need and they're willing to pay this much. Get there. Bro, we can make money. You have fire-related questions, and we have answers. You can email us your questions at podcast@woodlanddirect.com or give us a call at 586-221-3638. We would love to be able to answer them right here on the Experts in Fire podcast. So that's definitely one of the trends we've been seeing, is that turnkey option. What else have we been seeing, Randy? I mean, I know these trends have been building for the last 6-7 years, and it really entrenched itself in the outdoor space.
The more pools that go up from my pool contractors, the more fire bowls around the pools we see. And of late, we've done them for years, but of late, it seems I've gotten a lot more about fire water bowls specifically. Exactly. So that's, of course, ongoing. And those are going to be all different shapes based on, the pool design, the columns, whether it's round, square, that type of thing. So I believe that's not going anywhere. As long as these pool contractors are building these beautiful pools, we're going to continue to do the fire bowls around the pools.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, you see it more and more and more as you scroll through any social media outlet. Just having that fire aspect. It was for quite a while. It was just a bowl with scuppers, pouring water back into the pool. They were cool. They were neat, and maybe had plants in them. They typically called them planters with scuppers. And now it's turned into fire bowls. The ability to flip that switch, especially in the evening, sun's down, you just kind of have that ambiance light from the fires themselves. Really neat trend. And I have to admit, if I'm looking at a house with a pool, that would do it for me. That's one of those gigs.
Oh, absolutely. Commercial and residential. Seeing it in both applications, a lot of these new hotels and things like that, they're incorporating some type of water bowl dumping in or fire water dumping in. So definitely something that's going to continue for sure.
Absolutely. As I sit here, we're kind of working through a list that, we've been discussing, but the next one, fire tables, is such a broad category. There's just a lot to it, because even in design ourselves, we have conversations around how much of this fire pit is going to be table versus pit, right? There's this discussion of this many inches turns it into table, that, few inches is a fire pit.
Right.
But we're always constantly thinking about that aspect. I don't necessarily just want a fire pit that is fire. I want something that has some functionality where I can put my glass of wine, I can put my plate, things of that nature. So what are you seeing with the calls that you're taking on the fire table side?
So I'm glad you mentioned fire pit versus fire table, even though that they're both going to have fire. What we're talking about here is really the reveal, the flat surface that is outside of where the media, the fireglass, the lava rock is, maybe to set a drink on or something like that. And I just had this conversation this week with one of my contract designers. She asked for a 10-foot fire. I'm like, okay, do you want a fire pit in that seating area or do you want a fire table? And, what is it going to be used for? So this is, homeowner's going to have her girls over and have wine. Okay, do you want the reveal to set those drinks on? Some small little plates for their snacks. And she's like, well, I never thought about that. And that's where it comes to, when we talk about trends is more and more folks do want to be able to set something that they have in their hand when they're sitting around the fire, depending on the application of where it's at. Now, this is a lounge area with an L-shaped lounge area. So yes, they want to set their drinks on it. So, when we're talking about kind of the bullet points we're talking about, I did fire tables because that's what I see more of. People want a fire table that's in that 18 to 24 inch high based on their seating around it so that they can set something on it, their drink. Maybe they're propping their foot up on it. So that's kind of something that I've seen a lot of lately.
Back to conversations we've had in other episodes, each designer's different. That designer, if you wouldn't have brought that up, it probably wouldn't have popped in their mind, but giving them that information, arming them with it, helps them to work through, are we going to have tables around? How does this whole thing set up? And as soon as you said L-shaped design, I thought, no, you got to have, right? In my mind, where you got to have a reveal that's big enough to set stuff on because you can't have little side tables that close. So that's important information to have. It's one of the benefits of calling Woodland Direct for sure. Fire tables started off back in the day, kind of a playoff of the traditional backyard table where you had like the 12-inch tiles that went in there and a hole for an umbrella. And somebody said, let's put fire to that. And since then, it has morphed in so many directions. It's been amazing to watch the different opportunities from, we've sold commercially a ton of high top type fire tables with fire in the middle, but people can kind of stand next to them, have their drinks on them, all the way to low tables where you're lounging Adirondack style and able to set drinks on it. Some of our manufacturers have the burner on one end and a kind of a table effect on the other end, so you have plenty of space that's away from the fire. I mean, so many options available out there. and it's been fun to watch them come about for sure.
Oh, I agree. And the fire pit, fire table, like you mentioned, it's just so broad. I mean, we could go on forever on the different shapes and sizes, and it's, I know we're trying to throw it into just one kind of general category, but the fire pit, fire table, it's not going anywhere. It's evolving as the contractors and the designers get out there with their ideas for their clients. Our manufacturers are taking that information and creating what the consumers and everybody's looking for. So it's really just call us like everybody else does, and we'll help guide you to the right product.
Absolutely. No, that's the best, because there's a plethora of options. So absolutely, we want to help with that. So Randy, I know when we were talking about this, when we talked about fireplaces, we started talking about smart controls, and it really kind of wrapped around the lights on the fireplace side with some functionality for the ignition of the fireplace. However, when you get to outdoor and fire pits, we have manufacturers. It's I think we said it before. It's the great race to see who can come up with the coolest options, the coolest apps, the most trendy. Connect them with Siri or Alexa or whoever, so that you can utilize your fire pit the way you're trying to utilize your entire smart home. Talk to me a little bit about that control piece and what that stretches into here for us.
Yeah, it's exciting for fire pits because of the trend of just this whole smart home application. And when it comes to fire pits, the fire pits have the ability to be able to be turned on and off with the app. You can modulate a flame. Well, I shouldn't say modulate. It's typically a high or a low flame control that you can have with the app. And then, of course, with the controls, any pool automation system, these fire pits can be plugged into, so that if you have your own system and you're turning on your pool heater system, you're turning on the lights, you can have a button that turns on your fire pits within your pool automation system. So you don't have to have a separate app from the manufacturer. You can use an existing system that you have. There's definitely a lot of fun ways to be able to control these outdoor fire features.
Yeah, and what makes that really fun is it doesn't have to be what we talked about in the very first trend is a turnkey solution. You can take those applications and move them into a custom arena as well.
Correct. So going into customs, for example, which is huge. So many of my contractors site build all of their own fire pits. So they're building the structures themselves on site. And we can supply just the burner assemblies. And those assemblies can also be tied into any kind of smart control system. Or with the GFRC or the Corten steel, we do a lot of custom fire pits in both of those different materials that can also accommodate the electronic ignition systems, which can apply to the smart controls. So custom is, your on-site contractor building for you. Custom is, possibly like with my designer, something 10 foot. This might be a custom GFRC fire pit that we do, install the burner, and then custom is the Corten steel, which we're seeing a lot of. And folks that don't know what Corten steel, it's a steel that's used in a lot of structural buildings. You see like this rust patina look on the front of a face of a building or a face of a bank or a school. That's typically going to probably be like Corten steel. And we do a number of custom fire pits out of that same material that naturally oxidize on its own and give a kind of a red rust look.
Even to our hardscaper landscapers, when they walk in and they design an area, they'll end up with that customer, that client, or they're working with a designer who's going, we want this fire pit over here, but we want it to match all the landscaping that you're doing. So the block, the stone, the capstone, everything. And we have options for that. And you don't lose the applications, the controls necessarily. Now, sometimes I want to make sure I caveat that. Sometimes you can get into a situation where you go, yeah, that's monstrous. And we've done those on the commercial side, but typically we can facilitate that on the custom piece, and you get to keep those applications. So
absolutely. One of the things that I've seen, it's kind of moving a little bit forward as well, is so when it comes to commercial properties, we do a lot of commercial properties with fire. And of course, they all require some type of safety valve, electronic ignition system that is operated off of like some type of switch or a timer, and a timer where it times it out. So the contractors are site building these commercial fire pits. We're supplying all of the burners in the timer or the controls. And then even a timer, if maybe somebody doesn't have a smart home system, but they have teenagers at the house. Well, they're implementing a timer so that at 2 hours, no matter what, these kids, they get up and leave, that fire pit's, roaring, the timer is going to time out and shut that fire pit off. It's just another element of safety for these fire features that are available for, residential as well as what we do for our commercial customers.
Yep. I love it, dude. Excellent options and trending to be just a part of the home. The number of homes we're seeing that have switches inside the house, just inside of the door wall. And hey, what's that switch for? Oh, that's for the fire pit. It's really fun to watch grow and continue to grow as we go here. I wanted to mention on the custom side as well, there are a lot of options.
There is. Unlimited. Like I told my designer for a different project, send me a pencil drawing on a napkin that you had, with the homeowner, and we'll build it for you. So, it's like...
It's funny. The first thing I thought of was a kid at a candy store, but it's not. It's like a kid at the Lego store, right?
Legos, I love it.
Because you can build it, dude. It doesn't matter. If you want to build it, you can build it. Well, Randy, thank you again, dude. It's always awesome talking to you. And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. Fire pits and some of the trends that are going on. We tried to narrow it for some, just... here's directions, but it is still such a wild west out there with ideas and people generating new things that we're surprised every year in a fun way, in a good way, of what's coming in and what's being asked for.
Always exciting. And thank you, Mike. I appreciate our time together each time we do this, my friend.
I agree, brother. All right, thank you everyone for listening, and with that, we're out.